So, Cloud, you were a soldier first class, right?
Much like the
Yeah.
original did over 20 years ago,
Weird.
Final Fantasy VII Remake has taken the world
Really?
by
What's weird
storm.
about it?
Having sold close to 4 million
Nothing.
copies in its
Just
first
like you
3
were the
days,
same rank.
Square Enix has a true hit
Huh?
on its hands.
As who?
With such a storied
The first
history
battle
and
ever
expanded
left.
universe full of spin-off titles, Final Fantasy VII was the perfect candidate for a remake. But what about the rest of the Final Fantasy catalog? Well, here are the 5 Final Fantasy games that Square Enix should consider remaking next. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button and like this video.
Yes.
Whispers.
Final Fantasy VIII remains as one of the series' most divisive entries in recent memory. In many ways, it couldn't live up to the excitement surrounding the franchise after VII's massive success. But don't let that fool you, though. Final Fantasy VIII was a worthy follow-up that had a lot going for it. While Squall left a lot to be desired as a protagonist, the rest of the gang was just aces. You had Zell, Quistis, and Irvine among the favorites. It told a weird story about time-traveling witches, offered an unprecedented level of customization via its junction system, and introduced the world to Triple Triad, one of the best minigames in the franchise. Sure, the game got a lot of flack for some of its design choices. Seriously, what the hell were they thinking with that whole draw magic thing? But when your main character hacks enemies with a weapon called a gunblade, which is both a gun and a blade, well, that's reason enough to give Squall and the rest of the crew another shot at glory. The opening cutscene was jaw-dropping. I mean, just look at this. But the game itself, well... What is this? Yeah, and the remaster that came out, like, last year, it was good and all, but... Listen, we don't mind a full remake of this bad boy if it can get the same Final Fantasy VII treatment. Where Final Fantasy VIII split the fanbase, 4 was universally praised upon release and was responsible for the most groundbreaking mechanics in franchise history. The Active Time Battle, or ATB, what begins as a military drama about Cecil, a Dark Knight and a captain of the Red Wings, going around and stealing all the world's crystals for the Kingdom of Baron, soon escalates to a story about moon people. It may sound a little bizarre, but hear me out. This is one of the most compelling narratives in the entire franchise. It's loaded with betrayal, sacrifice, redemption, and dwarves. While Final Fantasy IV received a 3D facelift for Nintendo DS in 2008, a big budget remake can allow this classic entry a chance to truly shine. Final Fantasy III was the first of the series to introduce the job change system, a gameplay mechanic that allowed players to swap any character's class on the fly, and this dramatically changed enemy encounters. No longer were you pigeonholed into the roles that the game assigned you on the onset. Now, you were free to follow your dreams and pursue any career path that you wanted. The game's plot of 4 orphans in search of the Crystals of Light isn't particularly earth-shattering, but it's incredibly heartwarming and stars one of the most eye-catching final bosses in the entire series. While the game's 2006 DS remake added a bunch of side quests, a full-blown remake could give true depth to the Warriors of Light's journey. Final Fantasy IX was the last of the great PS1 trilogy of Final Fantasy games. Caught in the lingering shadow of Final Fantasy VII's critical success and VIII's love-hate reception, a lot was riding on IX to be a unique and memorable experience. Final Fantasy was a return to the series' roots in both style and theme. Instead of pushing for a hyper-futuristic setting, Final Fantasy IX bucked the trend by returning to the series' medieval backdrop. Final Fantasy IX also featured a remarkably diverse cast of characters, some from Freya, the Dragoon, and Vivi, the irresistibly adorable black mage, to Quina, the blue mage that learned enemy abilities by eating them on the battlefield with an oversized fork. Yes, you heard me correctly. Seeing this classic RPG remade in stunning 4K graphics would be nothing short of a dream come true. But if there was only one reason why this game is worth remaking, it's often ignored 2-player mode. That's right, it has a 2-player mode. When Final Fantasy IX was released, it supported 2-player action, where a friend could take control of a character while in battle. Seeing how this feature could be expanded on with online support could be a true game changer. Confusing numeration aside, Final Fantasy VI or III or whatever you want to call it remains as one of the greatest games ever made. Period. Full stop. It was the first entry in the series to shed its medieval setting and go for a cyberpunk aesthetic instead. To think of what this game would look like on next-gen technology should be more than enough to get you excited, not to mention the fact that it's one of the best stories the series has ever told, and it features an antagonist that rivals, if not flat out surpasses, the likes of Sephiroth. The plot revolves around the devious misuse of magic and machine to create this new tech called Magitech, powerful machines infused with magic. Espers, Final Fantasy VI's take on summons, are a huge part of the story as well. The original game only took about a year to make, so if Square Enix gets started now, we should see it at around 2034. There are a ton of Final Fantasy games that you could choose from to give Final Fantasy VII Remake treatment. I mean, the list goes on and on. This is not even including the spin-off titles like Final Fantasy Tactics or something like that. But I digress. What do you think of this list? Which games from the Final Fantasy echelon would you want to see remade in the style of Final Fantasy VII Remake? Let us know in the comments below, and please, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and hit that notification bell. This has been Steve, this is Dual Screens, and I just made a list. Be excellent to each other.